He wants us to remain Jewish. It's not a one-time deal. It is meant to be for all the generations to come. And there are several messages in Parashat Bamidbar on how to preserve our identity, how not to lose it to assimilation. One idea is the fact that the Torah was given Bamidbar. The Torah was given to us in the desert, not in some urban metropolis, but way out in the desert. Why? Because the desert is a barren piece of land, and it signifies anava, or shiflut, that one needs to learn to become humble, because humbleness is a very important midah in acquiring the Torah, but especially more so in allowing the Torah to influence him. If one listens to a speech, whether that speech will influence him, will have any impact on him, depends on how humble he is. How much willingness is there to listen? Because by listening, at some point, the one who's speaking to you, or if it's a book, the book that you're reading, it may demand of you to make some changes in your life. Some radical changes perhaps. And those changes cannot come about if someone is not humble. He will refuse to listen, he will refuse to make these changes, regardless of his motives. Humbleness is therefore an important ingredient in receiving the Torah, in listening to the Torah. Humbleness also will allow one to admit his mistakes. I've been wrong for so many years, it's time to make a change. So the Torah is being given to us in the Midbar, in the barren land, so we should learn from this. This is the place to receive the Torah. Make yourself a Midbar. Make yourself humble. Otherwise, one will have a hard time with all the demands, the requests that the Torah makes. After all, it's not just one or two, there's 613. So that is just one idea of why the Torah is given in the desert. Learn from this to become humble. Another idea that is expressed in this week's parasha are the words Se'u et Rosh Kol Adat Israel. The Torah is telling us to take account of the Jewish males, 20 and above, and there's great significance to getting an accurate number. Even though we're not supposed to count one by one, there are other methods on how to count, and one method was done through the Mahzita Shekel that each one gave. Nevertheless, the idea, the concept behind counting, rabbis tell us, is anything that is counted is precious. Every Jew is precious. Every Jew has a mission in this life. And if you read Parashat Bamidbar, you will see a very unique word. When you count them, you're going to count them legulgelotam. Legulgelotam means head by head. Every single one of them. But it also comes from the word gilgul, which means reincarnation. And the Kabbalah says that in every reincarnation, a Jew has a specific mission. It's not the same mission as he had in the previous lifetime. And because we all have a mission, we all have value. In other words, we're not just here to have fun, to do nothing. Everyone is designated a particular mission. Some people, once they're done with their mission, they leave this world very early because they've already completed everything they have to do. Nothing wrong with them. They just finished everything. Why should they stick around here? After all, this is the pits. Who wants to be here? Right? So sometimes, not all the times, once one completes his mission, he leaves. Sometimes we stay behind. But that is the idea of counting everyone, because everyone is important and everyone has a mission. And this is to remind us, again, we're talking about ideas here that will help us preserve our identity. If everyone is important, hopefully that will help us with what's called Jewish pride. Some Jews are not proud of being Jewish. They wish they were Palestinians. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating. They're puzzled by the fact that they were born Jewish. They're puzzled by the fact that they're in this land of Israel. And many of them, because of this puzzle and this questioning, they leave. Why shouldn't they live in Switzerland? Why go through all this trouble of having to be drafted to the army at 18 and risk your life for a country that many of them unfortunately do not understand what that attachment is that they have? Jewish pride. In order to strengthen ourselves and not fall into the trap of assimilation, there needs to be Jewish pride. Another idea that is expressed in Parashat Bamidbar in helping strengthen our identity is Vayityaledu lemishpechotam, as it is said in the pasuk there, that each one brought their lineage, documentation to prove to which shevet they belong to. Because we were not counting only individuals, we were counting them by the tribes that they belong to. What's the significance of all this? This is something called yehus in Hebrew. You may have heard it if you're in the shidduch business, if you are yourself dating someone, It's much more heard in certain circles in New York, Hasidic circles in Israel, that there are people who are looking for Yehus, Mishpacha Miyucheset, where there are no doubts as to where this family's lineage from. There are many sfekot today, many doubts about certain Russian Jews. Is the mother Jewish? Is the grandmother Jewish? And with the Ethiopian Jewry, it was a whole different set of problems. So Am Yisrael was always historically concerned to a certain degree with Yehus, especially the Kohanim. The Kohanim were even more concerned. You needed to know who is a Kohen, who is not. So Yehus was always something prominent, even though not everyone is as makpid with Yehus. If the girl is a fine girl, if the boy is a good boy, the family is a good family, that's good enough. Some people put a big emphasis on Yehus, and it's okay. It's okay for them to do so, because it means a lot. After all, you have more clarity, and you're more secure where this family comes from. So the emphasis on Yehus over here is, in order to avoid falling to assimilation, put an emphasis on Yehus. In other words, stick to your family. Many communities, cousins get married amongst each other. I know in Iran, for example, Mashhadi Jews didn't want to get married with Jews from Tehran or Isfahan. Mashhad was only Mashhad. They didn't want to have anything to do with anybody else. Very, very strict about their own. For good reason. They don't know what is going on. They don't know what is going on with other communities. Another idea here on preserving one's identity and not falling prey to assimilation, in securing your family and your children. The next idea is in the pasuk, Ve'ele Toledot Aharon u'Moshe. We're expecting to hear a list of the children of Aharon and Moshe. And if you follow the Pesukim, you will see only the names of the children of Aharon. The pasuk begins to say, Ve'ele Toledot Aharon u'Moshe. These are the descendants of Aharon and Moshe. So where are the children of Moshe? They're not mentioned. So the commentaries explain that Moshe taught the children of Aharon. Whoever teaches the children of his friend, it is as though he gave birth to them. It is as though they are his children. So the Torah does not have to mention the names of the children of Moshe. But the idea behind this is very significant, because the Torah is putting an emphasis on Jewish education. What's so special about Jewish education? There's two things. When a Jew goes to a Jewish day school, when he has a Jew as a teacher, he will gain two things over having a non-Jewish teacher. The non-Jewish teacher all he will give him is knowledge, information. Teach him how to count, subtract, multiply, perhaps a little bit of history. All of that is raw knowledge. The Jewish teacher has other responsibilities. Number one, the very similar responsibility every father has. La'avir et hamasoret v'shinantam levanecha. The father cannot give it over. He sends him to a Jewish school. The Rebbe, the teacher, takes over the job of the father. Many fathers are busy, or they don't know, they're not knowledgeable. That's okay. That is why we have teachers. That is why we have schools. So the Rebbe is taking over an important job over here, the job of a father, of giving over the tradition, transmitting the Jewish values to this boy. He will not give him just plain raw knowledge. He will also imbue in him derech b'chaim, a certain way in life, how to live as a Jew. So a Jewish teacher has so many responsibilities, and a Jewish student attending a Jewish school will gain so much, something that he would not receive in a public school. Besides the dangers of assimilation, besides the danger of drugs and all the problems that we have in our time, it's not possible for him to gain in a non-Jewish school what he's supposed to get in a Jewish school. And don't tell me about 1 hour a week with a Jewish tutor like some people try to do to exempt themselves of a Jewish education, because supposedly tuition is very expensive. Well, tuition is expensive, but there are ways to get around it. If you can prove that you cannot afford it, most schools are willing to work with you. The problem is with those who value their Mercedes more than their child's Jewish education. They have to have the latest car. For that there is no excuse. You do have the money, but you're spending it in the wrong things. Jewish education is therefore a priority. It's a very, very important investment. And you can only do it right once, because once the child has grown, what are you going to do? You can't take it back. You yourself can change. And it's not easy even for us to change ourselves. But to change our children, they have free will. And when they're grown-ups, it's going to be very, very tough. So that we really have one opportunity to do it right with our children, and that is earlier on. Send them to a Jewish day school. That Rebbe, B'ezrat Hashem, will take your place and do a good job and transmit over that tradition to him, and hopefully strengthen his identity as a Jew, which of course will contribute to a strong, proud Jew who will not fall prey easily to assimilation. Yes? We'll talk about that later, because it's really not related to the subject now. Unless it's a question related to what I just said, I prefer we leave it to later on. Otherwise, it interrupts our process of thinking here. Another idea that is emphasized in Parashat Bamidbar is the Mishkan. The Mishkan has tremendous importance, and for good reason. The Mishkan, or the Bet HaKnesset, or the Bet Midrash, or the Bet HaMikdash, if we had it, is supposed to be at the center of every Jew's life. What does that mean? It means that a Jew, even though he loves nature, and he would love to avoid traffic jams, cannot go and live in Yosemite National Park and just hear the birds chirp and be, amongst the bears and the monkeys. Why? Because he needs a Bet HaKnesset, his wife needs a mikveh, his school needs his kids need a Jewish day school. That is the center of a Jewish community. Now, I gave you a little bit of an extreme example of Yosemite, but I'm also referring to any community that is very far, very distant from the center of Jewish life, where there are no Jews. There's no minyan, just a few perhaps. And therefore, in choosing a place to live, most of us, of course, want to be comfortable, want to have good weather, but you can't have it all. The most important is to choose a center, a Jewish center, where there is a school, where there is a mikveh, where there is a shul, where you can live as a Jew. The Mishkan was the center for Am Yisrael. And so does the Bet HaKnesset, the Bet Midrash, the Bet HaMikdash have to be the center in our lives. We have to live around it. You can't say, well, eventually we will make one. Unless you have a whole group of people who want to create a new community somewhere, that's fine. Otherwise, you can't say the Torah will come after me, as the Rabbi tells in Pirkei Avot. Shitavo acharai. No, you search for Makom Torah. Avegolele Makom Torah. When you go in the galut, in the diaspora, when you're changing addresses, when you're moving, move to a place of Torah. You can't say, well, it's going to come with me. Eventually we're going to make one. What about now? What are you going to have now? You're going to have nothing. And your kids are going to lose out. Who are going to be there? Who are going to be the friends of your children? Your neighbors? What kind of people? So the Mishkan is at the center of a Jew's life. We've talked about how to preserve Jewish identity and how to avoid intermarriage and assimilation. But the facts speak for themselves. Unfortunately, throughout history, especially recent history, we have witnessed tremendous amount of assimilation. Do you ever wonder how this happened? It just didn't happen overnight. What are some of the factors? I'm going to mention maybe one or two. One factor that is, I think, evident, at least to me, is the fact that many Jews began going to colleges, universities. Something that the rabbis were always against. Why? Get a higher education, get a degree, a career. Why not? Because unfortunately universities are fertile ground for assimilation. Human being is very weak. Most human beings are affected by their environment, by their friends, by the teachers they have, by the books they read. And if you're amongst Goyim, you eventually, Khalila, may become like one of them. I'm not even speaking about co-ed dormitories, which is another set of problems. The fact that men and women are together, the fact that a Jew is amongst Goyim is a big problem. Now what do we do with this Jew, who's a fine Jew from a good family, who wants to be a doctor? I mean, he just wants to be a doctor, and all of us know that one cannot be a doctor without going to college. Perhaps you can be a carpenter without going to a trade school. Perhaps you can be a good plumber after you take an exam. There are many careers, or many professions, I should say, that do not require college. Well, what if somebody just is dying to become a lawyer, or a doctor, and these require college? What should we tell them to do? Now, ideally, rabbis, I just finished saying, were against this environment. So they said, no, don't go. Do something else. Choose another profession. But if somebody nevertheless wants to become a doctor, what do we tell him? What advice can we give him? Okay, go. Obviously, be careful what kind of a college you choose, and make sure that you are close to home if possible. And whether you're close to home or not, make sure that every day you spend some time learning Torah, and that you go to at least one minyan, shachrit, mincha, aravit. Because you want to create a balance. Here, the Jew is being affected by all this tum'ah, whatever you want to call it, non-Jewish environment. Then at least let there be an izun, a balance. Balance it out with Torah and with tefillah in a Jewish environment. At least he's getting a little bit from here. If all he's going to be getting is non-Jewish influence, then what do we expect will happen to him after 3-4 years? Imagine, people learn a language, a foreign language, after spending a certain amount of time in a foreign country. They absorb everything, the culture, the language, the slang. They almost become like their fellow citizens. And that is just a language. But in reality, what is happening is deep down, all of this environment is having an effect on us, one way or another. Some of us are able to repel because we live in our own self-made ghetto. We attend Jewish schools, we go to the Bet HaKnesset, we don't have non-Jewish friends over for dinner or Shabbat. We know the limits, and we keep to them. We don't watch TV, we don't go to movies, and if we read a newspaper, we just briefly go through it. We don't spend hours and hours reading all the gossip and the sports and the business and everything that they have to tell us. So we are protecting ourselves a little bit. Those who are completely exposed to the non-Jewish world and have no balance in their daily routine, or at least once or twice a week, they are in greater danger and greater risk of becoming assimilated. So one who does want to spend some time in college, he should make himself a balanced routine between the non-Jewish environment and his Jewish environment. Another idea, perhaps, of why the Torah was given in the Midbar, in the desert, perhaps we can understand with the following mashal. There was once a rich man who very much wanted to become king. So he went to community after community and offered them money. Listen, I'll pay for everything. Let me be the king. Let me be your king. You my followers. And I'll pay you. And they started talking about what are you going to want? What are your demands? How you want to run the place? And they said, well, listen, we don't want your ideas. We have our own ideas, and we don't want you to tell us what to do. Even though he came with money, they were already set in their ways. Until he finally went to the desert. There was no established community. There was a few Bedouins here, a few Bedouins there, and he gathered them all, and they readily accepted him. What's the difference? In the desert, there were no set ways. They had no community. They had no rules. And he made them. He was able to start from scratch. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah in the desert in a place where there are no set ways and set thoughts and set ideas from the past. When one wants to properly absorb the Torah should be his only guidance in life, he has to remove everything else. When people already are set in their ways and they have these preconceived ideas, I believe, let's say someone says, I already believe in evolution. He already made up his mind. It's going to be difficult to convince him. In order for the Torah to have an impact on a Jew, one has to be willing to let go of everything. The Torah does not tolerate preconceived ideas. It will not enter the Jew. He has to let go of everything. The Torah is therefore being given to us in the desert where there are no other societies, where there is no other culture. The Torah wants to be in first place. It is much easier that way. If one has grown up many, many years under communist rule, and we have seen this with Russian Jews, it's very hard for them to change their mindset. They've been atheists. You mean there is a God? They were trained to believe that there is no such thing. How do you retrain them? It's possible, but it's difficult. Torah is therefore given in the desert. Start from scratch. As much as possible, don't send your child, therefore, to a place where he's going to fill his mind with all this garbage and all this nonsense, and then retrain him. All that you've learned till now is not true. It's very difficult. Another way that has helped us throughout history defend ourselves from assimilation is something that Hashem does in all His kindness, and that is anti-Semitism. The word anti-Semitism sounds very powerful, sounds negative, but it was a big favor to us. Wherever there was anti-Semitism, Jewish communities flourished. They were reminded, you're different. Therefore, they didn't even think of marrying a non-Jew. Why is there so much assimilation in France? Because at one time they gave them equal rights. Any place where the Jews were given equal rights became more libertarian. Everything is mutar, like it is in France. You can do anything there, right, Isaac?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Everything is mutar. So the Jew fell prey to this influence, and little by little assimilated. Wherever the Jew was threatened, wherever he was persecuted, he was able to better preserve his identity. So Hashem therefore sometimes sends anti-Semitic riots just to remind us, keep off, don't assimilate, don't intermarry with them. Another way HaKadosh Baruch Hu has helped us retain all that we received in Har Sinai is through what the Midrash says. The Midrash says, and this relates to Chag HaShavuot, that on Har Sinai kafa alenu HaKadosh Baruch Hu har kegigit. He took the mountain and threatened us, if you don't accept it, I will bury you underneath this mountain. This is a very, how should we say, enigmatic midrash. It's not, you cannot translate it literally. What does it mean Hashem was going to bury us? What does it mean that He forced us to receive the Torah? We were forced. We said, Naso v'nishma. We said that we are ready to accept it regardless. So there are various explanations of what the words kafa alehim har kegigit means, that He put the mountain on top of us. The simple Parashat means that we were so impressed by the miracles of Egypt, everything was so obvious and clear to us, that it was simple to say Naso v'nishma. Of course, I'll do it. I'll gladly do it. I see it. I believe it. I have no doubts. Kafa alehim har kegigit. It was like forced upon us because everything was so obvious. We didn't need to be convinced. That's a simple Parashat. Another idea of what kafa alehim har kegigit means, when we said Naso v'nishma, that we're ready to accept the Torah, we meant the Torah shebichtav, the written Torah. Hashem says, you know what? I'm reminding you that you also need to accept the oral Torah, the Torah she'ba'al peh. You cannot have one and not the other. And all the oral Torah contains all the details of the mitzvot, all the halachot that we have. We would not know how to put on tefillin, how to make them, if we would not have the oral Torah. Another idea of what kafa alehim har kegigit means, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is reminding us, don't think this is something simple. Judaism is a great responsibility. Kafa alehim har kegigit, therefore, He's making a permanent impression on the Jewish soul for all the generations to come. This is serious business. This is not just a cult. This is not just a culture, a race. This is a tremendous responsibility that we are assuming. When we are saying Naso v'nishma, we're signing a contract that is not only committing us, but committing our children and future generations. They cannot come and say, well, my father was crazy, he took this, I don't want it. No. We are committing, everybody is committed, nobody can run away from it. So it's a tremendous responsibility that Am Yisrael took upon himself. Kafa alehim har kegigit is a reminder of that responsibility. Another idea of kafa alehim har kegigit is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, listen, you will have hard times. The non-Jews will try to force you to commit idolatry. They will try to convert you to Christianity and all sorts of things. You will be going through hard times and persecution. Just remember, even when you're going through hard times, keep my Torah. There are some situations, if 3 cardinal sins are involved, Yahareg v'al ya'avor. You have to give your life and sanctify Hashem's name and not commit the transgression, the avirah. Where will a Jew take all that courage from? He will be reminded from Har Sinai. Kadosh Baruch Hu reminded me that even in hard times, I cannot exempt myself. No, it doesn't apply now. It doesn't apply in the 20th century. Whatever, all sorts of excuses. At all times, even during difficult times, even if we're struggling, no parnasah. Should I work on Shabbat? Or no, chaz v'shalom. Where does it say you can work on Shabbat if you don't have parnasah? You have 6 other days of the week to work. You can do without one day. And on the contrary, all the berachah, the blessing for the parnasah will come as a result of observing Shabbat properly. Not like many people think, Saturday is my best day. They think that. All the money they made on Saturday, they will lose to attorney fees and other problems 3 months down the road. 3 root canals, 2 flat tires, the main pipe breaking. The main pipe breaking is expensive, no, I think? Yeah, I know you know about it. And other problems, right? So all the money that he thought he was making at Shabbat went down the drain, went down the pipe.
What if you're a noose rabbi? If you're a noose, you can't help this.
A noose, it depends what it is. A noose means that you are being forced. Well, it depends. If it's one of the 3 cardinal sins, it makes no difference. You have to give your life, right? If the goy tells you, make me a cup of coffee on Shabbat, and his only intention is because he wants a cup of coffee, and there are no 10 Jews around, right? Then you can go ahead and make him the cup of coffee and save your life. The Torah does not want us to die. The him. The Torah says, and you should live. I gave you the Torah in order for you to live, not to die through the mitzvot. Except for 3 situations. Idolatry, adultery, and murder. These 3, even if you're by yourself with the goy. Other mitzvot, like Shabbat, if there are 10 Jews present, and he's doing it just because he wants you to commit the avirah, those 2 conditions, he wants you to commit the avirah, plus there are 10 Jews, then you have to give your life even for something like that. Or if it's during the time of Shmad, when they're trying to convert all of Am Yisrael, then you give your life even for smaller things. There are all sorts of situations and circumstances. But otherwise, if you can run away, that's even better. Save your life and not have to deal with this problem. Just another idea, or perhaps, of what kafa alehim har kegigit, that Kadosh Baruch Hu is reminding us that in order to learn Torah, You actually have to force it upon yourself. You have to set aside time every night. You have to force yourself to come to a class. All of you tonight could have been doing something else. Could have watched the Lakers. Are they still playing? I don't know. Yeah, because that's when people don't come. That's one of the excuses they have. You could have been doing so many other things. The fact that you came means that you forced yourself. It's important to you, and that's very powerful. Because it's a constant battle that one does with the Yetzer Hara, especially to learn Torah. Torah is the most powerful antidote against the Yetzer, against the evil inclination. Because we are neutralizing him. We're introducing into our minds all these good ideas. We are reminded that this is only a corridor, that life is short, that all of this is shtuyot, nonsense, and vanities. How does one remind it? When he learns Torah, he sits down, he hears it, he reads it. So that is a very powerful antidote against the Yetzer. The Yetzer doesn't want that. The Yetzer wants to defeat you. So therefore he will always put up a big fight when one has any interest in going to hear Torah. Your mother-in-law is coming to town and you better pick her up from the airport, send a limousine with flowers, and come to the class instead. That's all. But there are many ways that the Yetzer Hara will try to trick you. But this is more important. Because the Torah is a very powerful antidote against the Yetzer Hara. So, Kafalahim har kegigit, he forced it upon us to remind us we need to force ourselves. We need to make it a routine. You don't skip dinner, usually not, and don't skip a shiur. It should be just as important. It should be something regular. But you may need to force yourself to make it happen, because it's not easy. The Yetzer is constantly fighting against you. Yes? Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
What is, your parents are against to becoming more religious? Because the whole time we're talking about studying about the children, helping your children.
Right. That's a very good question. If your parents are against you or giving you a hard time, this is really a subject in itself. The parents need to be convinced. Depending on your age, if you're completely independent, then the only issue that you have is kibud avaim, how to give them the proper respect, and how to do nevertheless what you want and what you know is more important. If you're obviously not independent, then it's a little tricky. You need outside help. You need a rabbi or a teacher to speak to the parents to convince them, perhaps. Alright, so this needs to be dealt with separately. It's a sensitive topic, but things can be worked out. The Goyim, when Moshiach will come, will have a complaint. You forced the Torah on the Jewish people, and that is why they accepted it. That's why they did a good job. That's why they didn't give in. Why didn't you force us? We would have also done a good job. And the answer will be, I gave you 7, and the 7 you didn't keep. Imagine if I gave you more. Anyway, what we see from all of this is as follows. That somebody who's able to survive spiritually in this world is something to admire. All of us admire perhaps somebody who was saved from the Holocaust. They went through hell several years. It was miraculous, and it's something to admire. But it's a much greater admiration to see someone who's survived spiritually, because it's not easy to survive spiritually in this world. That's something of greater admiration. That is why in Parashat Bamidbar you will see that there's an emphasis on going to the army. There's an emphasis on going to the army, being drafted to the army, going at a certain age, staying until a certain age. What is all this army for? What do we need armies for? But part of the idea of having an army is, as the commentators explain, it has to do with milchama neged yetzer. It's not our war against the enemies, it's really a war against the Yetzer Hara. Am Yisrael is being structured in such a way to remind us that we should always be on the defensive and on the offensive against a constant enemy. And that is the enemy called the Yetzer Hara. That is perhaps a synopsis of Parashat Bamidbar. I want to go over to Parashat Naso. Very, very important parasha, tremendous important lessons. What happens in Parashat Naso is that you have a chapter that covers something called Sotah. Sotah is a woman who betrayed her husband, supposedly. We're not 100% sure, until the waters test her. Are all you familiar with this, or do I need to describe to you what is happening? A woman who the husband suspects that she may have been betraying him, and he wants her to be examined by a certain water that she is given to drink. If she in fact she committed a sin, she did not admit it beforehand, her legs, her thighs would swell and she would die. A very unnatural death, very cruel death. So she's being suspected of committing this terrible avirah. If you read this parasha, you will find that there is a certain term called ruach kin'ah. The husband will be influenced or motivated to examine his wife through a ruach kin'ah, a spirit of jealousy. What jealousy are we talking about? So there's two opinions. One opinion says this ruach kin'ah, this jealousy, he sees her speaking to other men, and therefore he suspects her, especially if she entered the room. So he's jealous. Where is this jealousy coming from? So some commentaries tell us that the jealousy is coming mitzat hatum'ah, meaning from the yetzer. The yetzara rotzeh leharher rivpo. He wants to make a tremendous amount of argument here between the husband and wife. It's not real what he saw and what he thinks, but the yetzara is putting it into his head. Oh, I know why she was talking to him, because she has something to do with him. So it's coming, this ruach kin'ah is perhaps coming from the yetzer. Others say no, the ruach kin'ah is coming mitahara, from a pure source. This is a husband who's really concerned about the modesty of his wife, the lack of modesty in this case, that she is talking to men unnecessarily, perhaps. We don't know for sure yet. And she's doing it too often, and she's been warned perhaps already once or twice, and therefore he has reason to suspect, but this is coming from a tahor side, pure side. The Zohar even says there's something called kin'ah tova, a good jealousy, and that is kin'ah shekrucha be'ahava. Any kin'ah that is attached to love is a good kin'ah. What we're talking about, a kin'ah that a husband or a friend sees the other spouse or the friend being very, very close and intimate to someone else. They become very jealous, and it hurts them, because they feel as the most important one, as the closest one, and they wouldn't want to see that closeness or that intimacy with someone else. That is a kin'ah tova, which comes from kin'ah akrucha be'ahava, out of love. It's not just jealousy. That's assuming that there is real love. If there's no real love, then just, kin'ah is kin'ah. Many people are jealous of anything. That is a good kin'ah. So the husband can't possibly be jealous. He can have this ruach kin'ah coming from a clean, from a pure side, if he's concerned what's going on over here. I want to make a pshara, I want to make a compromise between the two opinions of Tumah and Tahara. The two are correct. The Pasuk says, Birtzot Hashem darchei ish gam oivav yashlim ito. When Hashem approves of the ways of an individual, even his enemies will make peace with him. If this man is great, is behaving himself, all the enemies will make peace. Nobody will fight him. The rabbis tell us, what enemies are we talking about? One's wife. Even your wife will make peace with you. What does that mean? It means as follows. If a woman is caught or suspected of doing something terrible against her husband, and in fact it turns out to be true, the reason why this happens is because Hashem does not approve of the man's ways. He himself is not behaving himself. Because he cheated on her, because he betrayed her trust, and she betrays his trust. And Hashem allows this to happen, because that is his way of letting him know, Atalo beseder, you are no good. If your wife came to this, if she did this, then something you're doing is not right. So she becomes his enemy. She turns against him. All of a sudden, my wife is turning against me. Why? Maybe you're doing something not right, and Hashem is using her as, the devil, right? She's a good woman, but Hashem is using her to punish you, to remind you that something you're doing is not right. But there is another side to this. Lo yipol shevet haresha al goral hatzadikim. Hashem will not allow the destiny of the wicked to fall on the righteous. A righteous man, a good man, should have a wicked wife. It's not fair, right? When they met, she was fine. How could it be that she stooped to this level and committed this terrible sin? Does he deserve it if he's a tzaddik? So the Torah says, the Pasuk says, Lo yipol shevet haresha al goral hatzadikim. Hashem will not allow it. But it happened. Well, it only happened now, but he will eventually discover it and either get divorced or she will die, because he does not deserve to continue living with such a woman. So why is this happening? Mitzvah Tahara. Hashem is letting him know. Hashem says, you know what, I'm concerned about you. You don't deserve this kind of a woman anymore. Once upon a time she was good, but now she deteriorated. You got to find yourself something else. And therefore, it will be exposed. So the two are possible.
Does it go the other way around too? The man is bad.
Yeah, obviously it works the other way around. But in Parashat Naso, we're talking about a sotah. But as I indicated in the first situation, if the man is no good, then obviously she will fall, but the waters will not always work. The water that she would be given to drink would not work if he had the same sin. So a similar problem exists, obviously, if the man betrays the trust of his wife. But now we're concentrating on the woman because she's the one that bears the children. She has greater responsibilities in a sense. Now, what is happening here is very unusual. If you read the description of what would happen to this woman, if in fact she sinned, She basically dies a very cruel death. That's strange, because this is a nes galui, this is an open, clear miracle, sheyesh din v'yesh dayan, that there is justice in this world, that the Torah is for real. There is punishment in this world. We thought, right, the schar va'onesh b'olam haba. There's no reward and punishment for the most part in this world. Everything is reserved for the world to come. This woman is being punished here, and this is not a punishment by a bed din, by a court. This is directly min hashamayim. Everybody was able to observe this miraculous event. She was dying a very unusual, unnatural death. Why? The answer is as follows. Shlom bayit is very important. Hashem wants that there should be peace at home. Hashem wants that there should be good children. That the zivug, that the union should be bekdusha. And in order to achieve all of that, Hashem is therefore concerned if anything wrong is going on in the house. If one or the two is betraying the trust of the other. And therefore, a message, a powerful message has to be sent out. Hashem wants to save this marriage. Now, remember, this man is suspicious. He's jealous. He's concerned. She drinks the water, nothing happens to her. You know what that would do? Baruch Hashem, you're such a special woman. My dear wife, sorry that I suspected you. Right? And they would be back together. Not only would they be back together, the Torah says that she would be blessed. If she had no children, she will now have children. Just for going through this ordeal. If she had children with difficult labor, she will now have it easy. No more cesareans. Easy natural birth. In other words, they would be blessed for having gone through this ordeal. So something good would come out of all this. Hashem wants to therefore solve this problematic marriage. This marriage has trouble. There is suspicion, there's probably, I should say there's possible a betrayal of the trust. I have to uncover this situation, and we have to solve the problem. Shalom bayit, peace at home, is very important. The Torah therefore puts an emphasis on this, and Hashem allows for this miraculous event to occur before our eyes, because this is something important. His own name He allows to be erased in those waters that she will drink. It was a name of Hashem that was inserted into the water. All of this for what? To try to save the marriage. The process of the sotah involved water and afar, a little bit of dirt that was put into the water. Why water and earth? Water can be destructive and water can be very purifying, like the waters of the mikveh or of a ma'ayan, of a spring. The waters can be destructive and can be helpful. The woman is being reminded that her actions, if in fact they were no good, are having a very destructive effect in this marriage. But if obviously nothing happened, she will be blessed. She will be purified. That is one of the ideas of why water is being used here. Water is powerful, one way or another. It could destroy a marriage, or it could purify it. Earth is being put into this water to remind this woman who has not admitted yet. She said, I didn't do anything. You are from the earth, and eventually you go back to earth to humble her, to remind her. Admit. If in fact you did it, admit it, so the name of Hashem does not have to be erased. So you don't have to go through this ordeal. They're trying to get her to admit if in fact she did it. You are from earth. Just remember, why go through it? Why deny if in fact she did it? And it's all put in a cheres, in an earthenware vase. Because the human being is compared to a cheres and ishbar. We make mistakes. It can happen. We break sometimes. And the name of Hashem is put inside. What does that symbolize? That the neshama is a chelek eloka mima'al. You're in fact a part of God. How could you stoop to this level and do a ma'aseh behema and act like an animal? So all of this is very symbolic. It's not that she's just given a potion to drink. It's very symbolic to get her to awaken to the fact that she did something so serious, and perhaps she will admit it if she did it. Now let's go to the big question. How does that ever happen? That an individual commits such a serious avon? How could a woman do something like that? Rabbis tell us, En adam choteh ela ad shenichnaset bo ruach shtut. No human being commits an avon unless a spirit of folly enters him. Shtut. Folly, craziness. What's this ruach shtut? So there are various ideas behind what a ruach shtut is. One idea is that an individual, right before he commits a sin, he's really thinking that this is good for him, that this is important. Otherwise, obviously, he wouldn't do it. If he wouldn't think for a moment that this is good, that this is worthwhile, he wouldn't do it. He's forgetting about the consequences. That's another problem. But ruach shtut means that he is being convinced that this is, even though this is shtut, even though this is no good, but for a moment he thinks, no, it is good. Olam hazeh is important. I want to have a good life. Maybe he's thinking, you only live once. I don't know. That's all this is ruach shtut. Another idea is that he does not contemplate. He acts out of impetuousness. Is that the word? Impulsively, quickly, without thinking. Rabbis tell us, hefsed mitzvah, sechar avera, hefsed avera, sechar mitzvah. Always calculate before you do something. Weigh the situation. Most people who are investing a lot of money, hopefully, are going to weigh the pros and the cons, unless they give it over to a broker. Most people think a little bit into it. You're about to commit an act, something. Aren't you going to think about it, the pros and cons? When a person does not think about it, ruach shtut niknesabo. He did not think about it. He allowed himself to just go and do it blindly. Another idea of ruach shtut is that a person allows himself to do things that are they're not entirely forbidden by the Torah. They're called abizarim. In other words, they're similar, but they're not really asur. He's not doing the real thing, the real avera. He's doing something which is one level below it. And as a result of doing all these things that are not necessarily forbidden, they lead him to commit the real avon. Ruach shtut therefore entered him in trying to justify that what he's doing is permissible, and it may be so, but the problem is he's breaking fences. He's getting closer, dangerously close, and then eventually he falls. Another idea of ruach shtut is a person knows that this is serious, and he says, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway, it's not going to happen to me. To me, it's not going to happen. Who thought like that? Shlomo HaMelech. He's going to do something that the Torah forbids, and to him it's not going to happen. It won't affect him, and it did affect him. Ruach shtut, therefore, is a momentary thought that enters a person's mind thinking, it's not going to happen to me, it's not so bad. I'm going to watch myself. I'm going to go and do all these things which are asur, and it's not going to happen. Some people cannot predict what will happen. Another idea of ruach shtut is he says to himself, he knows it's serious, but I won't get caught. Nobody is looking. Yeah, but Hashem is looking. They forget about that part. Nobody else is looking. Like that guy who was once traveling with the rabbi in his agalah, in his wagon, and he tells the rabbi, you know what, I have to stop over here. He stops, he goes to a private orchard, and before he sets on his way to get some fruit, he tells the rabbi, tell me if somebody is around, somebody's watching us. I want to get some fruit for the way. He goes and tries to steal some fruit, and the rabbi yells at him, come quickly, and the guy runs for his life, sets out, thank God that you saved me. By the way, tell me, who was around, who was looking? He says, Hashem was looking. And nobody else. You forgot about that. They're always trying to see who's looking. Nobody's looking. I won't get caught. Yeah, but Hashem is recording every maaseh you're doing. When we talk about ruach shtut, we must remember that a ruach shtut does not enter by itself. You have to open the doors. When one brings a TV into his house, and says, well, I'm only going to watch the National Geographic. Yeah, but you're switching the channels around, and you're inviting trouble. Ruach shtut does not happen by itself. A person has to do something to come to this. And then of course he's battling a situation which is very difficult to win. Don't let it in, so you won't have such a big battle. Rabbis tell us that this ruach shtut, or this tumah, whatever you want to call it, will not reside in an individual, will not have any influence, or will not have too much of an impact unless he is rek mikdusha vechokhmah. If he has no intelligence, he has no kedusha, then it can invade him and have an influence on him. But if a Jew fills his mind with kedusha, with chokhmah, studies Torah, then there's less room for all of these influences to enter. One who, for example, looks at things that are forbidden to look at, he's allowing that also to influence him. And the eyes are like cameras, which we're going to talk a little bit about soon. Very powerful. Don't invite them. Don't open the door. After Parashat Sotah, you have Parashat Nazir. And the rabbis tell us, you know what a Nazir is? He stays away from wine, doesn't drink wine, lets his hair grow, cannot get in contact with Tumah. The rabbis tell us, Lama nismecha Parashat Nazir le Parashat Sotah. Why does Nazir come close to Parashat Sotah? Ki haro'eh Sotah bekilkula yazir tasmo min hayayin. Whoever sees a woman who went through what she went through, that she deteriorated, that she stooped so low, should therefore, when he sees this happening to another human being, that he should stay away from wine. What does this wine have to do with anything? Rabbis tell us that what we're talking about is not necessarily just wine. The idea here is to control your ta'avot, your desires. One of the first steps to stay away from trouble, if you know yourself that you're weak especially, is control your ta'avot. Don't overdo it, whether it's eating, whether it's drinking, regardless, because when one loses his control with the ta'avot, he's very close to committing sins. He's not in full control of himself. He has no discipline. So the whole idea of Nazirut is self-discipline. Step number one in this discipline is to control your ta'avot. How? Don't drink wine. Stay away from all tumah. Let your hair grow. If wine is so bad, why doesn't the Torah forbid wine for everyone? So there's a deeper message over here. It doesn't just say whoever sees a sotah should stay away from wine. What does it mean, whoever sees? So the Kabbalah says, if you saw something happen, min hashamayim, they wanted you to see it, because there's a lesson for you personally to learn from it. Otherwise, why did you see it and not him? If we observed something, we needed to see it. It is a lesson for us. It is a lesson to that Nazir. You need to gain control over yourself. And it's not only observation, it's also being aware. We are aware of what is going on in this generation, that there are so many divorces. We should learn from this something. We should investigate, why is this happening? A Nazir, therefore, is taking precautions, staying away from trouble, because she got into trouble. It happened to that family. It can happen to my family too, Khalila. You saw it, you observed it, or you are aware of it, then take necessary measures that it doesn't happen to you, because it can happen to anyone. Second step in staying away from trouble is watching one's eyes. Rabbis tell us that the two eyes are agents of sin, sarsurei avera. Shimshon HaGibor, he was a Nazir from the moment he was born, but because he saw things with his eyes that he was not supposed to see, the eyes are what got him into trouble with Dalila, with that Philistine woman, Palestinian woman, whatever you want to call it. What? Yeah, but his eyes gave him trouble. One has to be very careful in controlling what he sees. Even if he was a Nazir, even if he watched himself, it didn't help him if his eyes were touring around, looking at things he should not be looking at. There was a Jew who once went up on on a bus in Israel, and unfortunately there were some girls who were not modestly dressed, and he closed his eyes. He didn't want to see, and he went to the back seat. And he fell asleep, and he has a dream that there is an angel in the dream telling him, get up and warn everybody there's a bomb underneath your seat. He thought it's a dream. He went back to sleep. Second time around, the angel comes to him, there's a bomb. He wakes up twice, looks around, and sure enough there is a suspicious object. Goes to the bus driver gets everybody out, sure enough it was a bomb. When he went to visit the Baba Sali said, you know why you had this dream? Baba Sali knew right away that this man had a dream. You were able to protect the entire bus because you watched your eyes. That one incident where you closed your eyes and you did not allow them to become tameh from this erva, that gave you the zechut of seeing that in the dream and saving the whole bus. We must remember that when one watches his eyes, he's increasing his kedusha. And that's why the Kabbalah says, even though we fail, we can't control our eyes always, which you just can't. Even if you win, you defeat the Yetzer once a day, once a week. Every defeat, every win is important because you're adding kedusha and you're adding merits. And through those merits, you can help others too, as with this Jew. A lot of people, unfortunately, go beyond looking. The French, some Latin American have a very serious problem. They like kissing everybody, even married women. It's it's sur gamur. Yeah, the Moroccans learned it from the French. Yeah. So it's a big problem. You know, it's not enough that we are seeing things that we shouldn't, right? You have to be careful with what you see, but to do the actual maaseh, whatever is forbidden is forbidden. Yeah, there's no heter for it whatsoever. Now you will understand why a lot of people do not advance spiritually. They can't get ahead, they can't progress, even though they're trying. The reason why they can't progress, even if they're trying, because as Rabbeinu Bachya says, they're trying to do mitzvot and do averot at the same time. They want to have olam hazeh and olam haba. It's not possible. One's work, one's service to Hashem is not complete if he's holding on to averot on one hand and mitzvot on another hand. You can't have it both ways. The third step to staying away from trouble is controlling one's selfishness. Selfishness is what's causing many people to part. One does not want to be mevatel retzono, mipnei retzon acherim. He does not want to give in ever. And whenever spouses do not want to give in to each other, it's because of selfishness usually, and that usually brings about separation and divorce. That is why a Nazir had to let his hair grow long. Letting the hair grow long was anava, was humbleness. Staying away from tum'ah meant that he has to be careful with the influence of the chevra, influence of his surroundings. All of this was in order to help him reach this discipline and this humbleness, that he should not be selfish, control his desires, and stay away from tum'ah. And what's interesting about the Nazir is that the Torah says it may happen befeta pit'om that he will become tameh. All of a sudden he became tameh unintentionally. What is that peta pit'om teaching us? Why doesn't it say peta pitom by kohen? A kohen cannot become tameh too. It says peta pitom only by nazir, because anybody who's chozer b'teshuvah, who wants to become a bal teshuvah, will always have pituyim, will always have temptations. The Yetzer will go after him, and it therefore may happen to him much more than to a kohen that he will become tameh. Therefore, he has to watch himself more carefully, because the Yetzer will go after the bal teshuvah. You're trying to be good? I'm going to go after you. I'm going to fight you. It may happen, therefore, by peta pitom. He has to therefore be extra careful. Many people make fun of balei teshuvah, and that creates tremendous amount of pressures. What are you, primitive? What do you need this for? If you look at the Nazir, the Torah says on him, ki yafli. Ki yafli, when he decides to make a neder to become a Nazir, the Torah uses the word ki yafli. Yafli comes from pele. Pele means a wonder. Anybody who controls his ta'avot, who's doing something for the sake of Hashem, is a true wonder in this world, because most people are not doing it. And what does the pasuk go on to tell us? Nezer elokav al rosho. Don't be afraid, don't be ashamed. Remember, you're wearing the crown of Hashem on your head. You're a king. If you are able to control yourself, you're special. If you are able to discipline yourself, don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Don't let them influence you. You are wearing the crown of Hashem on you. This is all to help this Bal Teshuvah, this Nazir, to not be influenced by peer pressure. We said that Nazir comes after Sotah, but the Gemara of Nazir comes before Sotah. So the Rabbi of Gur say, why is that? In the Torah, Nazir comes after Sotah, because he just saw something. Why is the Gemara of Nazir before Sotah? Because in reality, the Rabbi says, it should be sur merav ve'asot tov. One should let go all evil, and then he can begin to do good. But unfortunately, if we are to wait for somebody to let go of all evil, he will never come to do any good. So therefore, aseh tov kama sheyachol, do as much good as you can, and hopefully through all that doing the good, you will let go of the evil. Masechet Nazir therefore comes before Sotah. Do as much Nazirut as you can. Now Nazirut itself is not good. The Nazir is called a Chotei, a sinner. He brings a Korban. When is Nazir good? Le'azir Lashem. If he was done Lashem Shamayim, if he's doing it for self-discipline, then it's good. Just to stay away from all the hanaot in this world doesn't mean anything. If you're doing it for the sake of Hashem, then it's good. And last but not least, I want to finish with what the Torah tells us in Parashat Naso, Yevarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. We want Hashem to bless us and to preserve the blessing. We make a lot of money, we don't want it to be stolen by thieves. Yivarecha Hashem, but v'yishmerecha, you should preserve your wealth. The commentaries also tell us, Yivarecha Hashem, with good kids, with everything else, but you have to make the kelim, you have to make the vessels to preserve all of that. Hashem wants to give us all the blessings in the world. He wants to give us a good home and good children. He wants to reside in our homes. We have to prepare the kelim to receive that and to preserve that. What is the difference between a pikeach and a chacham? Some people know how to get out of trouble. Some people know how to not get into trouble. A pikeach is one who knows how to stay away from trouble. A chacham may know, I got myself into a problem, I'm going to do teshuvah. The best thing, Morai Rabotai, is to learn how to stay away from trouble, not to get into it and come out of it. Yevarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, therefore, is, if we do our job in preserving everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given to us, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us stay away from trouble and be blessed with a true Bayit Ne'eman Be'Yisrael. Any questions? Yes?
The example you gave about the TV, you can say the same thing also for a computer.
Right, a computer is also fertile ground for trouble if you don't have good discipline and you surf the web in forbidden areas. Yeah, sure? Right, so therefore, if you know yourself, then it's okay. If you're weak, then it's like any other addiction. You can fall prey to it. But there's no doubt that TV and theaters is a bigger problem, because it is a for sure problem. It's for sure something negative that you're going to see. Whereas the internet, there are things that are positive. There are things that are useful, and if you only can stay focused on them, you may be able to avoid the problem. But the internet is also very dangerous, because there's things that come to you whether you want it or not. They come. So you have to be very strong. If you learn Torah, you regularly attend shiurim, you strengthen yourself, then hopefully this will have less influence on you. You will be able to skip and overlook it. In other words, look away from it. If you have no Torah, if you don't have support, if you don't have a strong backbone, then all of this, of course, will weaken you. So the best thing is to know yourself and put up your own gdarim, your own fences. This, of course, I will not touch. This I will never dare go into. And especially be careful with your own children. One has to know the importance of the Torah and the danger that is there. If one is not aware of the danger, then he will say, well, it's not a big deal, it doesn't influence me, I'm married anyway. It influences everybody, and it's very, very dangerous. So if you know to keep your distance, if you have good discipline, you have self-control, then you're able to better control the situation.